We're filming today for the Hamilton College Jazz Archive in New York City with drummer Jackie Williams, and it's a great pleasure to be here with you. Can I call you an in-demand drummer in New York?
Well, that sounds good.
I think
like
you
that.
are. It took me a few times to reach you, so you must be out there.
Out there trying to do something, yeah.
I know that you play a lot of jazz parties and occasional cruises.
Right.
And this is something that we have really just become aware of, that these things are out there. And what is that like to do that? Is it a good gig?
It's a wonderful gig in more ways than one. Well, you get a chance to play with different artists that you haven't played with maybe in a long time, or even artists that you haven't met, you know. So it's always a thrill, you know. Each party is an opportunity to play with these people you haven't played with in a long time, or meet someone you hadn't met before, and you get a chance to have a variety of settings to play in. You understand what I mean? Say if there's 20 musicians or so, and you might have a set of say 6 musicians. Well, you get a chance to play with a different group during the time that you're there. You may do a trio setting, you may do a quartet setting, you may do a sextet setting. You know, so you have a fresh approach each time you come on, you know. So it's always nice. And you get to extend your repertoire. You brush up on some of the things that you haven't been doing.
Yeah.
You know, say you've been locked in one environment for a long time. So you get a chance to get out and hear what other people are doing. You know?
It's interesting in the jazz world, that kind of you have to, in addition to learning your instrument, you have to learn the etiquette.
Definitely.
And the repertory, so that, as you mentioned, you might not know some of the people you're on stage with.
That's right. So the thing is, before you go, you usually get like a rostrum, they call it. I would say a rostrum of the different players. So you familiarize yourself with them mentally, and musically you would just say, well, what is the so-and-so doing? What do they do? You know, that's the way I usually do. And you familiarize yourself with their repertoire, the type of things they do. You know, just like if you go in for a job with someone, you find out what their needs are, you know. So that's the way I usually do.
Right. You a New Yorker by birth? You've been here for all this?
Yes, been New Yorker.
So you've lived here pretty steadily?
Pretty steadily, except for when I go out of town a lot. Some people say, well, do you still live in New York? I go do a lot of traveling sometimes, you know. But it's always nice to get back to the Apple, you know.
What's a typical month like for you, as far as moving around? And they probably vary, but... They
do vary. But if possible, I like to do, especially European travel, I like to do that in the summer, in the warmer months, because it's much more pleasurable, you know, traveling-wise. You know.
Yeah. Is there an audience difference from the United States to Europe to Japan, perhaps? I don't know if you've been to...
I have not yet been to Japan. I probably will be going soon. But the audiences are very good here in the States, and they're exceptionally good in Europe, I find, you know. Especially the audiences that are there already for you, say the colleges and things that you play for here, or concerts, you know, or the cruises, the jazz parties. Those audiences are there already.
And they know their stuff, too.
They know their stuff, and you get there, and they're waiting for you, you know. So you give them the best that you can, and they give you their best too. You know, that's the appreciative part about it. And I find that the audiences in Europe are just exceptional also, because they know your history. They know you know, sometimes even better than you know what you've done, you know. You go over there and they say, well, I got that record that you did with the 2 guitar players. And gee, that's been so long. I did a record with 2 guitar players.
Jim Hall?
No. It'll come to me before. I certainly hope so. The guitar player that was with Fats Waller. Are you familiar with him?
That's going back. Wasn't Al Casey or something?
That's who it was.
Okay.
I knew you could do it. Al Casey and Butler, Jimmy Butler. They were the two of them, and the drum. And it was Hughes Panassier's son who had this little, recording company like.
Yeah.
And he wanted to record different people of his choice. So they said, well, let's put this together. So it was his idea, I think, to put us together. He had recorded Joe Jones with Milt Buckner Trio, Illinois Jack and all that stuff. So they said, well, let's get this trio. That was his idea, to put us, the 3 of us together. And it worked out beautifully, So when I go overseas sometime, people will say, I still have that record. I say, which record? And they'll tell me this record. I say, gee whiz, I've forgotten all about it.
Well, it's funny that, you're not the first person I've talked to that may not have the records that they played on.
Yeah.
Now, to me, I said, boy, if I'd want every record I played on.
Yeah. That's true. What you're saying, now that record, it's hard to get. It's on the Odyssey label. And I went overseas another time with Slam Stewart, Johnny Guarneri, Pat Flowers, and we did a tribute to Fats. It was called a tribute to Fats Waller. And we recorded a lot of wonderful tunes, and some of the stuff that was recorded on Black and Blue. And Slam did some things with Johnny, with whom he had worked with quite a bit long before, with Perez and all those other guys. And so when we recorded there, and I had a chance to meet Stephen Grappelli while I was there, and he decided he wanted to record with us, so he recorded with us. There's so many wonderful things that you do sometimes just on the spirit while being on a certain scene at a certain time, And that was a wonderful experience. And from that, people come, they say, well, I have a record of you with, that particular instance, with Johnny Guarneri and Slam, and that one with Johnny Guarneri, Slam, and Stephen. So you never know when somebody's going to come up with something that you did, That's the beautiful thing about recording, because your work can go to places that you don't go yourself, That's the beautiful thing about it.
Yeah. And when you look at some of these great artists like Milt Hinton and so forth, it must be such a thrill to play.
Milt has to be in every home there is. He's so recorded, and so justifiably so. He's just such a great artist and human being. He's just wonderful.
Has recording, the process of it, changed significantly over the years since you started recording? The studio presence.
Well, I imagine it has come to some lot of technical changes. They use a lot more technologies. Now. I wasn't there in the beginning, like say Milton, a lot of the other musicians were, but I could tell that they utilize a lot more things, machinery and microphoning and things like that. Unless you tell them that you don't want all of that. Sometimes you could tell them if you're being over-mic'd, or if there's something wrong with the way they're doing it. You can make suggestions, but they're going to do what they're going to do.
And then after you leave, it's like, they can play with
all
their
right.
buttons.
Well, why I asked in the first place? But in all, they work it out. They try to always reach a happy medium.
Right.
because basically the music is the most important
Uh-huh.
thing, you know.
How
And
long does-
everyone wants a good product, finished
Yeah,
product, you
yeah.
know.
How long do you usually spend, like with Junior Mance, how long do they usually give you to do an album like that?
The last one we did, Blue Mance,
Yes.
well, they gave us we did it all, we took the whole day as long as we wanted
Yeah.
to do it, yes.
Mhm. Good.
And they didn't, no one was pressured, we were not
Good.
pressured to do it in a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
But we had, we did what we had to do it over. Whether had to do over, we did over. What
Yeah,
we didn't have to
right.
do, we left alone.
Right.
Because
First take.
sometimes you could be too picky, you know, and
Yeah.
the more you try to do something, the worse it gets, you know.
Yeah.
So you just have to, you know when to say, hey, well, that's it. It's not gonna get no better,
Uh-huh.
or you know. Sometimes the first take is good,
Yeah.
you know. The second or
Yeah.
second or third take.
How did you come to be a drummer?
I've been wondering that all my life.
Where did I go wrong?
I've been wondering about that all. Well, I guess I was always destined to be one, I guess. Although I liked music, I was just infatuated with music from as long as I can remember, from a kid. I would always, you know, kids roll up paper and blow, and they're imitating a horn,
Yeah.
or they'd be beating on something.
Uh-huh.
So I was always fascinated with music. I can remember. I liked almost every instrument I heard. And I could remember staying up nights, you know, listening, my ear glued to the radio, listening to music. Because when as I was growing up, they had music going on all the time, you know. There was radio programs, you know, they had bands on the radio. And well, I grew up in New York, and in Harlem there was always some place where music was being played. You know, there were clubs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess I just migrated to the drums through hearing music, seeing other people play, and just having a little talent, initiative to pursue it, you know. Because I do remember studying a little piano. A cousin of mine was studying piano, and I always used to, like I said, always dab around with the keyboard and stuff like that. You know, just by ear and things, picking out melodies. I was always good at that. So I heard, through hanging out, through the different rest of the kids, they would have little schools, you know, where kids could go and study an instrument. So I remember one day in high school, one of the kids came by and said, have you heard about this particular school in Montmorris Avenue? So they have a great school. Guys go over and play. And this particular guy, I think he was studying saxophone or something. Because everybody was emulating the different musicians, you know, like Max Roach or Lester Young or somebody. I said, gee, I think I'd like to go over there and see if, you know, check it out, see what was happening. So I went over there and I, you know, I was introduced to the teacher. His name was Mr. Brooks. I'll never forget him, Aubrey Brooks. And he gave all the kids a wonderful little screening, you know, see what talent they had, you know. So I told him I would like to study some drums, you know. So he had me show me a few things. This is the pad. We started out with the pad, and as time went on, we had the classes there. He taught the rudiments of music, you know, not only just the drums. He taught theory, you know, the scales and everything, which was so wonderful. And the school was really nice because it gave the kids an incentive, you know, to have something to do, even to be hanging out on the streets all the time, you know. So that's why I just really got an interest in it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he made it even more interesting by inviting certain celebrities from the theatrical world to come. He said, well, next week or a couple of weeks from now, we're going to have Bojangles, Mr. Robinson, you know.
Yeah.
Bill Robinson's going to come, so I want you to have a nice program prepared for him. You know?
Wow.
So, wow, I said, what? So we all were very enthusiastic, you know. So he got a wonderful little drum choir, like, together for us, and we all had, all the people that were playing the drums affiliated with percussion. He had somebody playing tenor drum, snare drum, tambourine, whatever. You know, he was very creative that way. He would create rhythms and stuff and write them out, and we all had our parts, you know. That's the first time I ever was aware of playing an ensemble thing.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
How they fit together.
Yes,
What's
how they
your
fit,
role?
you're right, you know, how everybody was important, you know.
Yeah.
And Mr. Brooks put that thing together, and we did it, and Bojangles came in, Bill Robinson came in, and he spoke to us, and he was so uplifting, you know. He was so proud to see us, you know. We were proud to see him.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he was so complimentary to all of us. And that was a real boost to us. And not only our class, but that particular school was good. It had vocalists, it had other instrumentalists, you know, violins and stuff like that. It was just a wonderful school. So in the process of doing that, Aubrey Brooks said, well, you know, I think you have a little extra talent. I would like, if you get a chance, because this is school, if you get a chance, one day I would like for you to come and study privately. I mean, you know, I want you to kind of stretch your talent out a bit. So I said, okay, Mr. Brooks, you know, when I get a chance, you know. And as time went on, I finished junior high, and then I went to high school, and I majored in art in high school. I didn't go to music and art, you know, like most kids would that wanted to, because I was into art also, you know, like drawing and commercial art. So I studied, but I think I was leaning towards the music, you know, because I would always be in the band room, you know, messing around with the drums and stuff. So finally, the musical director of the high school, Mr. Klinger, he would say, well, Williams, why don't you join the band, since you're in here all the time?
Make it work now.
Yeah. So eventually I joined the band, you know, the high school band, and around the sophomore year, and it was wonderful. He had me doing a lot of nice things. We did, you know, naturally, the Monastery Garden, and, you know, orchestral things at that time. They weren't doing much jazz.
Right.
But I remember one of the assemblies, the main assemblies, he knew that I liked jazz, and I went to the jazz thing, so he had me do a little demonstration on what I knew about the xylophone. They had a little xylophone there, and I would make up a little program actually it was the bells and the timpani and snare drum and stuff like that. So it was so nice, and it was encouraging because the kids were really enthusiastic about it. You know. So those things like that just led me on to say, hey, maybe this is what I should be doing. You know,
a lot of the people we've talked to have had instances in their youth where some one person really made a difference that paid off. And
it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Someone to give you that push, you know.
Right.
Say, hey, why don't you do that, you know, and just press you on to it.
Yeah. When was the first, your first, like, professional gig?
Gee, it's hard to really pinpoint my first professional job, although I know I had a set of drums, and I was playing around. People would call, they knew I could play drums, so they would call around, and, you know, different people in the neighborhood that had dances or something like that. They would call me and say, well, here, man, I got a gig or something like that. A dance. There were a lot of dances and stuff then, you know, which was beautiful. So I did a lot of those things, but I couldn't really pinpoint the first time I played it's hard for me to really pinpoint that.
The dance thing comes up over and over and over
Mhm.
with connected with jazz.
Yes.
You know that
Mhm.
that it is and was a dance music,
Mhm.
and from a drummer's standpoint, I would imagine that you had to really pay attention to what worked with the dancers.
Oh, certainly. Sure. Sure. In first place, most important thing was to have good time. You have to have time, because they'll let you know.
Yeah.
You know, if you say, well, what's going on up there? You know, this the first was to let you know they're dancers, you know, good dancers. And
What kind of dances were they doing at this point? What year was when you
this was
first
in
started?
50s, late 50s,
Yeah.
medium 50s.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, about medium 50s, late 50s,
Right.
around in that time, going into the 60s. Well, they were doing Lindy, ballroom, like ballroom.
Mhm.
They were doing mambo. Mambo was coming out then. A lot of Latin and mambo and stuff like that. And calypsos. They
Yeah.
did calypso, jitterbug, swing type dancing,
Uh-huh.
ballroom dancing, and they always did some kind of creative things, you know.
Right.
So I used to get a lot of gigs playing with some groups, local groups, and I remember one time. This is a funny story. I have to tell this one. I had a new set of drums set up in my grandmother's living room, and I was staying with her at the time. And somebody had given my number. I don't know if it was Major Hart or Joe Medlin, whoever. But I got a call. They said, "Jackie, are you playing tonight?" I said, "No." They said, "Well, we got a job. You have to make." I said, "Well, I don't know. I just got these drums. I'm trying to set them. They haven't even. Just took them out the boxes. They all." He said, "Well, we're in a hurry. We got to have you right away. We coming together." I said, "Well, wait a minute." They said, "No, we can't wait." You're not working? We're coming. So I said, "Well, wait." I said, "Okay, come on." But I got to put all the stuff together. It's all scattered all over. They said, "Well, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it." So they got there. It was Joe Medlin, the singer, and Major Holly came.
Uh-huh.
I said, "Well, we're playing for Tiny Bradshaw. So hurry up, let's get this stuff together." I said, "Well, gee whiz, I'm not dressed. We're going to get dressed. We're going to put the set
Man.
together." So I said, "Oh, Lord, how did I get into this?" So finally we got it all together. They got it together, I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah.
So we got it all together. We on our way out to Jersey, to this, I think we were playing at the Mosque, one of those places out there. And, we were in the tunnel, Harlem Tunnel coming across.
Yeah.
And I said, something is wrong here. I don't remember putting something and packing something. I think the foot pedal, I didn't bring my foot.
Oh.
They don't worry about it. You probably got it. And I'm thinking to myself, you know how you get that
Yeah.
feeling. And all that rush and hurry, So we got there. I'm setting up all these drums and everything. There's no foot pedal. I said, I knew it. I let those guys. So we had to go. And now here's Tiny Bradshaw, who was a stomping band. You
Yeah.
had to.
Yeah.
He wanted to hear it. He used to do those things. Red Price, like those guys. They were known for that strong beat.
That shuffle
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. And especially the foot.
What are you going to do? Kick your head? with your foot?
So I'm playing at the top with this but the Major's looking at me.
Oh, no.
And it was so finally, Joe said, "All right, Jackie, I think Art Blakey was working not too far from there. Thank God he was working close by. So they went up and told Art Blakey, and Art sent me a foot pedal. So I finished the gig out, and it was But it was it was so funny at one point because after that happened, Major says, "You mean to tell me you worked me to death?" You know how funny he is. And he would tell people, he would put yeast in the story. And I say, "Now, Major, don't lie. It was just the foot pedal that I left."
Right.
He tells people, "You know what he did? He came on this drum with a brand new set of drums, no sticks, no brushes, no nothing. And he worked me to death."
I was trying to make up for the fact that you didn't have...
So I said, "Well, Major, you know, I know you're such a great bass player. I figured you didn't even need this."
Yeah, right.
And he said, "Why you?" He was so beautiful. We had so much fun together, you know. We worked together quite a bit, even since and after that. You know, he was just such a great player.
Yeah.
I sure miss him too.
Right.
Wonderful player.
What about
that was a funny experience.
Yeah.
That was such a hilarious experience.
Who are some of the vocalists that you've had a chance to work behind?
Oh, I had the great pleasure of working with one of the great ladies, I think, Miss Maxine Sullivan. And in fact, I did a few recordings with Maxine. And I think one of the last things we did was Burton Lane songbook. And we did several things. And she was a joy to play for. Also, Carrie Smith, I played for Carrie a few times. Abby Lincoln I played for years ago, a long time ago. I remember playing, we did a trio thing with Abby. We played out at it was a club out in Jersey, Teddy Powell's. That was a wonderful experience, playing for Abby. And well, she's quite an artist also, very most original. Even to this day, she's always been original, you know. And some of the other vocals, those are the ladies. The gentlemen, Joe, I played, Mr. Joe Williams. Yeah. Joe was a joy to play for. Not on a steady basis, but on certain occasions, you know. I remember doing a wonderful job with Joe. This particular one, he was asked to do, he was featured doing Ellington music. And I've always been associated with him with the bassy and the blues, you know. But he did, which is why I say he's one of the exceptional musicians. He's a musician, you know. There's some people that are vocalists and this, but he's a musician as well as a vocal. He just knew that music so well. We did some Ellington things, that thing in the beginning. He did it, he had the drama of it. He had the inside of, you know, he just goes inside of a thing. It brings out the whole, the essence, the gist of the message, you know. He's just a fabulous performer. He did that, Ellis Larkins was his musical director at the time, who and I had been doing some things with Ellis, you know, I did a few recordings with Ellis, who was, I guess most vocalists consider one of the ultimate accompanists, you know. He accompanied Ella and just about everybody. Well, that particular concert, Joe did such a magnificent job. And since it was a Duke Ellington concert, Al Hibbler was in the audience. And Joe gave him such accolades, you know, just gave him, which was he was due, you know. But I thought maybe Al might come up and they would do a duet, but I don't think he was feeling that well. You know, his voice may have been a little under. So he decided he would just listen, and he was so happy, you know, he applauded us and everything. And that was a great event. And I had another chance to play with Joe. We were on a cruise, the cruise again, and at one point they had different artists, you know, a group of musicians get together and Joe would sing with us. That was real great. And that was more impromptu, you know, which he's so good at. He's so free, you know, he's so relaxed, you know. His mannerism, it goes such a long way, you know. He knows how to relax an audience relax the musicians. You know, it's all business now. He's sincere. He knows what's going on. You know, but he always has that stage presence to make you feel relaxed. You know, he relaxes the audience. He just communicates. That's why he's such a great artist.
Yeah. When you kind of caught the tail end of the heyday of the big bands, I guess, after they kind of had a tough time after World War II.
Right.
Did you get to do much big band playing because of that?
I didn't do too much very little big band myself, except, like I said, if I played some local dances. But I did have a chance to play with the one big band that I enjoyed. They assembled a big band for Earl Father Hines.
Oh. And
we played at the Riverboat Room, and I did that. I did a week of that with him, and then I went on to do something else. But that was wonderful. Well, I had been out with Earl for a while. Prior to that, we were doing some quartet things. Oliver Jackson, my one friend Oliver, who's gone now, I sure miss him also. He's a great drummer. Oliver was with Earl at the time, and he was going to go with, he remembered Kenny Burrell for a while. And so he asked me if I said, sure, Earl would like you to come and play. So I went with Earl for a while. We would move around like that. That's a beautiful part about music,
Right.
Get different experiences working with different people. So I worked with Earl, Bud Johnson, Bill Pemberton, and myself. And we had a wonderful time with the quartet. We went everywhere. So after we were on tour there with the States, most of the States, Earl was getting ready to go to Russia, so he asked me if I would like to go. I said, well, no, Earl, Oliver should be coming back, to make that tour, He said, well, if he doesn't, if he has tied up, you're welcome. You can do it if you want to. So I was very appreciative of that. I said, that's great, thanks. I said, well, Oliver's going to come back, and he's going to, go to Russia and do that tour, And I went back. I went and did some other things, and. But we did, before I left, we did have a chance to do a big band thing down at the Riverboat Room in New York. And that was nice. The good thing about that, Ella Fitzgerald was also on the bill with her group, so Ed Thigpen was the drummer with her, and it was great, and so it was the two groups. And after that, I did occasional big band things with maybe if Buck had a gig, something, a dance or something like that, or somebody, commercial leader, somebody would call me for a date, a club date type thing with a big, stuff like that.
What kind of, have you done many non-jazz kind of work? Done any rhythm and blues? That type of thing.
Sure. I did many of them.
Yeah.
I did, prior to getting into more of jazz, I used to do quite a bit. We call them rhythm and blues and entertainment type groups, things. It was a lot of fun, and very beneficial to your growth also, because you get a feeling of entertainment, which all music is, And no matter how serious it is, it's still supposed to be entertaining, I remember playing with a group, Johnny Guitar Saunders. He was a guitar player, naturally, and he had a nice little entertainment type group. We used to do a lot of the things like Night Train and stuff. Those things of the day were very popular, Night Train and Honky Tonk and stuff like that. But those things were joyful to play. The people really liked that. And we used to go to a lot of different places. We used to play up in Buffalo, Buffalo, New York, and Rochester, different places. They had a lot of that kind of stuff. In Pennsylvania, we used to go out there and play the Pueblo Club. And I played with that group a lot for a while. Then I played with another wonderful trio, Eugene Smith. He was very entertaining. He would do a lot of piano stand up and play the piano and sing and do stuff like that, you know, like Maurice Rocco. But Maurice Rocco could dance. He was a tremendous dancer, and he would dance and play the piano, boogie woogie and everything. Eugene was very good like that, and he used to idolize Dorothy Donegan because she was such a great performer.
Oh.
But he was very fond of Dorothy's playing and stuff. But Gene was a natural entertainer, as well as he played wonderful piano, but he was more of an entertainer, you know. So I used to do a lot of work with him, and we played a lot of the clubs in New England, and some outside of in Canada and Ontario area, and we used to do a lot of traveling. Once in Boston, we went to Boston and we played Wally's, a place called Wally's, where most of the jazz players had come, you know, played, and that's. When I was in Wally's, that's when with Eugene Smith, I first met Alan Dawson, the great drummer from New England, and I met Mae Arnett. She was a wonderful, great singer, and I met them there. I met Jackie Byard in Boston at that time, and he played, you know, Jackie plays alto saxophone. Yes, yes. And he came and he was playing alto sax. I said, well, gee, this guy plays so great. But I didn't know he was playing. He played piano. Yeah. But I first met him, I thought that's all, you know. But then as the time went on and we even worked together, not too long ago we worked together, I realized that he was a great piano player, you know. So in all these travels in different settings, you hook up with so many different things, and they all, like a puzzle, they all come together, you know. That's the fantastic beauty of music, you know.
Tell me about playing on this this particular recording with
Milt, with the judge?
Yeah.
Oh, that was wonderful.
There's a great picture of you in here with
Diz?
Yeah.
With Diz?
Diz
and John.
And that cigar in his mouth?
Yeah. Oh, that was a thrill automatically with just those two guys, you know. The thing is, I was looking for, John Bunch said, well, you guys took a picture, and I went home.
Oh!
John Bunch was supposed to be in this picture, Because I said, well, John, he said, but Jackie, you guys took a picture, and I didn't know you guys. I said, well, I didn't know either. Nobody's told me until I had my coat on. So that they said, well, come on. I thought I was ready to go, and they said, well, come on, we got to take a picture. Well, we had all met, Hank called and said, well, we're going to go meet over at Dizzy's house. We went over to Dizzy's house. And so we waited for Diz. Diz came in, and then we went on over to Rudy Van Gelder's, you know, and did the date. Well, Judge is so fabulous. You know, he had so many different players. This is the one where everybody played, different age groups. He's so fabulous. We had a wonderful time doing this. While we were doing the session, Dizzy's so comical. He was showing, he had this, what do you call those things that you write down? You know, like a memo book, but it's
computerized?
Computerized one. He had one of those things that had locked on him, and he couldn't know.
He didn't know where to go next.
So he was telling us that story, boy, it had everybody cracking up. When he tells a story, you can't help but laugh. It goes to immediate laughter, you know, when he tells a story. He said he had this thing, and he was somewhere, he lost it. He said, well, I don't know what to do. Somebody found it, and they opened it up and found it and returned it to him. Boy, he was so happy. He said that was the greatest thing that could have happened to me. But he was describing how the good, all the wonderful things that happened since he had that thing. You know, it made such things so much easier. You know.
It's great.
Until he lost it.
Yeah, when you lost it, then you had it. Oh God.
But. Dizzy is so phenomenal.
He's funny.
He's so funny. We had such a good time.
I have to just relate a story of my own quickly. He was playing a jazz festival in Syracuse.
Yeah.
And the mayor of Syracuse came up and proclaimed Dizzy Gillespie Day, and Dizzy must have been one of those moods because he came up to the microphone and he just went, "No shit." You know, there's all these people out there. I don't know. I think the mayor like
no
just
difference to him.
Yeah. He goes, "I'm overwhelmed." And that voice he had made it
That
so
voice,
much better.
the voice, it would just crack you up. You know, he was so funny. God, that man was funny.
Oh, Lord.
He didn't have to even open his mouth sometime, you know.
Yeah.
He just walk on the stage and just start laughing. He'd make those gestures. But he was just a natural performer, entertainer also, you know.
Yeah.
That's our heart biggest goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was beautiful. Well, Judge was so, as he always is, so gracious at this thing. And he said, "But Jackie, I want you to do whatever you want to do. Just fit in and do this." I said, "Well, whatever you guys want to do, you know." So we did a wonderful little thing. Diz told me what he wanted. You know, he didn't want, you know, he was going to use some mute, so he wanted something soft, you know, nothing too loud. So it was nice. I think it came out lovely.
I think it did, too.
And the judge says, "Judge, you know, he's Judge, I got to apologize." He said, I don't see your name on that thing, so I want you to don't think it was." I said, "But Judge, don't worry about it. I'm on there."
Yeah, you're on there, yeah.
So he was trying to, I said, "No, it's not necessary. It's your date. That's the most important thing. Now everybody else is around you, you know." Listen.
Right.
Yeah, but he's just like that, you know. He wants to make everybody happy all the time. You know,
Can you quickly name a couple of the major influences on the drummers you listened to on the way up?
Oh, wow. There's so many I listen to and still listen to.
Yeah.
Well, there's naturally there's Sonny Greer with the Duke Ellington band. I used to, you know, always glued my ear to. And then there was the wonderful, great Joe Jones, Papa Joe, you know. And he was just wonderful. As a drummer, but he was wonderful as a friend, you know, just wonderful guy. Naturally, it's Max Roach. I always listen to him. When I get a chance to listen to Max or go see him. Roy Haynes is another master drummer. So creative. I don't care what situation you could put him in, he's going to come out Roy Haynes, and it's going to sound right, you know. I mean, whether it's mainstream, avant-garde, fusion, confusion, whatever. Roy Haynes is going to make it sway. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be a work of art when he finishes with it. He's just fabulous. And then there's a lot of the other, naturally Elvin I like. I listen to him. What he's doing is just awesome.
Yeah.
And the Buddy I always loved, naturally, Buddy, and Gene Krupa. I used to love, Sid Catlett, Big Sid. I always loved listening to his work. I saw him, I had the thrill of seeing him at the Apollo and with the Louis Armstrong All-Stars. Oh man, he was just fabulous. And I never had a chance to meet him, but I did have the privilege and chance to meet Papa Joe, Cozy Cole, Zooty Singleton, and Papa Joe made it possible for me to meet Baby Lovett, the great Kansas City jazz drummer.
Oh.
And see, Papa Joe took a great interest in all of the musicians, not only the drummers. He was a wonderful man in the sense that he cared about the music and the musicians, you know, and he was always trying to make sure that you were under making progress, going into, you know, just keep going forward, you know, and developing yourself and things like that. He was really concerned about that. That's why I admired him, you know.
What do you feel about the way jazz is going right now, the future of it, and as someone who's making their living in jazz, does it bode well, you think?
I think it's doing wonderful. In fact, I think it's making tremendous progress in more ways than one. You don't have all the everything changes, the setting. The settings have, a lot of the settings have changed, you see.
That's for sure.
especially for the beginnings of jazz. But things are supposed to change. But even in the change, the music itself still flourishes and goes on. And that's the beautiful part of it. So you don't have so many of the clubs or the dance halls and stuff, but you have the concert halls, you have the schools. Now the only thing is, I would like to see more outlets for the talent, because you have almost twice as many more musicians now.
There's a lot of young talent out there.
And there's a lot of young and really good talent. I mean, these kids are just, they're on the money, you know. They really got some talent. And it would be just so wonderful if they had a place to really let it out, you know, in the right way, you know. Because it's not always in the book. It's not always in the studio. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not always. You see, what made the Joe Williams, the Buddy Richards, the Joe Jones, Gene Cooper, they had a whole spectrum of outlets. They had the dances, you know. They had the carnivals and circuses, all that stuff. They got experiences from a lot of different sources, you know, the movies, you know. And you got that dance thing was important to give you the sense of moods and emotions, you know. You could play something and it's not always going to be rippity, you know, fast and exciting, because people are not always in that mood, you know. Yeah. So but that's the good thing about the dancing, you know, the dance halls and stuff like that. That was very good. And it brought people together a lot, you know. You got the chance to socialize, and it was great. But this is really nice today also. But I tell you one thing, over in Europe, they believe, and they have, I was over there year before last, with the Alden Barrett Quintet, which I work with when we get a chance.
Oh yeah, they're nice.
And we went to, they had a wonderful, we played a festival over there, and one of the days they had a great a festival of the big band era. They had Lionel Hampton was there, and then they had a band, I forget who the leader was, but it was based on Glenn Miller. It was a Glenn Miller band, actually. But they played all the other big bands. The Glenn Miller band played the music of Duke Ellington, they played the music of Count Basie, played the music of Tommy Dorsey, and they played wonderful. They just played, you know, all the tunes, a lot of the music that you were familiar with those particular bands. And that band played so good. But naturally, Lionel Hampton's band just wiped everybody. Yeah. They just tore the whole place up. Yeah. They just wiped everybody out. But that Glenn Miller band was very good, and it was good to see. And that place was packed, jammed. And it was young, it was old, and they were dancing. It looked like something from out of the 40s, you know, the 50s. It was unbelievable. Everybody was all commenting about that. And it was just beautiful. Now, that's the kind of things they need to bring out more, I think, here. And that would really balance out that whole thing, you know. Because they didn't lose that, you see. Over there, they cherish all of that stuff, you know.
That's interesting. And a lot of people have said that. I don't know, sometimes when an art form comes from somewhere else, people treat it with more respect. They treat that with a great deal of respect. And they look forward to that particular time. Every year, they come out and the people tell me they get stronger and stronger. And that I could see that for myself. Those people were out, and all age groups. It wasn't just the people that were over 50 and 60. These were youngsters, you know. Yeah. And they were doing those dances, and they were having a ball. They was having a wonderful time, and the music was good. You know, it was just great. Well, what's next up for you? Well, I anticipate something good. I like your attitude. I really do. I anticipate something good. I know one good thing is coming up. Get a chance to be with my buddies, Junior Mance and Keita Betts, in a couple of weeks. I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to be on the jazz cruise on the SS Norway. Oh, there's so many good people. Yeah, we're going to have a ball. Oh, Lord.
In fact, I got a letter from a lady from Florida. She's a real fan of ours now. She wrote a newsletter, you know, for the St. Petersburg, Florida. She says, Jack, we can't wait for you to come for the cruise. So she wrote down in the newsletter. She was on that cruise with Oscar Peterson. She wrote the line of some of the report on that.
I was on that cruise.
Yeah, Hilda. Her name is, I forget her. Hilda. She dropped me a note with the newsletter that she wrote, and she mentioned what a wonderful concert that was with Oscar and everybody, and all the different artists that were there. Yeah. And she mentioned, and I can't wait to get for November the 4th to hear one of my favorite groups, the Junior Man's Trio, with Keita Betts and Jackie Williams. Yeah.
Terrific.
So we're really looking forward to that. We had such a great success the last time we were, and we played the song, American Song, the boat, and this time we're going to do the Norway. Yeah. And it's going to be some great talent on there also.
I think Joe's going to be on that cruise.
Joe is going to be on that. I hope Joe is going to, or is he on the one before us?
Oh.
Joe might be on the one before us, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's going to be 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And but we're going to have some good people on ours also. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to that. We have such a great report with Junior and Keita, you know. I think you could tell that on the record, huh?
Yeah, I sure can.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, all right. Well, it's been really fascinating talking with you.
Oh, well, it's been my pleasure, Monk, and I'm glad that you thought of me.
Yeah.
Very happy. And I hope that I've conveyed some kind of message to whoever views this.
Yeah, and
about it.
I like your positive outlook on the future of jazz, too, because, to be honest with you, not everybody shares it.
Really?
Yeah, some people feel that, well, because the venues have changed so much, that there's just not the places that the talent can be incubated.
Well, I find that where there's a will, there's a way.
Good.
And that's the truth. That is the truth. Oh, I didn't mention another great group. A privilege I had of playing with was Frank West, who was another great, fabulous musician of the Basie alumni, and we did a wonderful thing over in Norway, Oslo. We did a wonderful. In fact, we did a nice recording over there. It was called Surprise, Surprise. We did a lot of stuff, some of the stuff Frank's writing, and one by Norman Simmons, and also Joe Cohen, Al Cohen's son was on that, and Lynn Seaton. That's a wonderful CD. And we did some nice things, and was received very well over there with that. And that's another way that you could tell that the music is healthy and growing. Because each person, every time you go somewhere, you find out that they're trying to start a little company, a recording company, or some kind of a library. I think it's a healthy atmosphere. I always see something coming up, you know. Yeah. And there are good musicians out here, and they're going to get a chance to express themselves. I believe that.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much on behalf of Hamilton College. It's been a real pleasure.
My pleasure.